So what are these mistakes, right? What are the things that we've been seeing um, students fall into in their drawing, especially at the beginning of their learning how to draw career, right? So I'm going to ramp this up. The first thing I think to keep in mind is the concept of big to small and small to big. Uh, what ends up happening here is, and this isn't just like art students, I think this is just people in general, art or not. It seems like a common human trait is to get mired in detail, right? Is to see the small details of things instead of seeing like the big picture, right? I know this sounds like a silly metaphor, but the one I like using here is, if you know you're going to go food shopping, and you know that you need to get milk, right? It's really easy to go to the supermarket and start looking at all different kinds of other things instead of keeping your eye on the prize, right? The priority was to go in there, get milk, have that at the top of the list, know that's the thing you have to go in and you have to leave with it. And how often do we go and try to do those things and we get all these other things except for the thing that we went to actually go buy in the first place, right? So you want to keep this idea of big to small thinking, or hierarchical thinking, instead of small to big. um, I have found, like I just gave you with that metaphor, it's not just about drawing, it's everything, right? You can literally take this tool of the pyramid and bring it to all different areas of your life. It could be a conversation, it could be a task list, um, life priorities, right? Just life priorities, right? So not to be too grandiose, but I think it's a really big deal. I can honestly say for myself, it was life changing, like literally life changing, to try to get into this mindset. Okay. So, and someday maybe I'll share more of that in some videos as to how life changing it was. But today we're just going to deal with some more common mistakes. So the way that I usually start this conversation is, look, if you were to try and, if I were to say to you, hey, here's a lump of clay, right? So here's a lump of clay. And I said, we're going to sculpt a head out of this lump of clay, right? You don't want, and what you don't want to do is go, okay, I'm going to have this lump of clay, I'm supposed to create a head, where's the eyeball, right? And start trying to sculpt an eye on this giant lump of clay, right? That's you going in for a small detailed idea before going for the big idea, right? You want to try to stay as slow as possible at the beginning and massage your way down to the nuances and the details. Another very common metaphor here would be a cake, right? Like the foundation of the cake is what matters. All of that has to be built up for you to get to the top of the cake and finally put all the flourishes on it, right? So same concept here. If you got a lump of clay, the idea is to sculpt a head. You should not go in there trying to sculpt the eye, right? Like you don't want to start with the eye. You can't even really land it well at first, right? So instead, you probably want to do something a little bit more like this, right? And say, here's a lump of clay. I'm going to sculpt a head. You're going to keep deconstructing that lump of clay and massaging it until you have like some major planes. Here's like four, well, you can see from this view, three major planes, right? Top of the head, the side, and front. And then going through that process, I can finally start nudging my way over to the eye. And even at that point, I probably wouldn't do the eye. I'd probably get the nose because that's still a major form on the face, right? And then I might finally get my way down to the eye and then the details, right? So hopefully this is a clear example of, you want to work from big to medium to small, right? How does this relate to the figure? So this is a lump of clay in a head. Um, how does this relate to the figure? Well, I have to say this is one of, I think, the things I'm most proud of when it comes to teaching force. And that is, to draw a figure, when we're drawing with force, it doesn't take much line and it doesn't take much time, which is actually very, very important. That's a great thing to always remember, is we're all dealing with time, right? So I can draw a full figure in, let's say 30 seconds or 1 minute and get a pose down and understand the whole body, which means if I don't like it, I can change it. I can fix it. I can change the pose. I can change the acting. I'm still trying to comprehend the idea of gravity, right? And how does the gravity work here? Um, and understand, like I said, the whole body, right? That's very different than the image on the right, right? The image on the right, someone might say, well, I want to draw this figure. and they go up, maybe they draw a little of the neck and the head, and then they get all involved, let's say in the pectoralis, and they start drawing the striations of the pectoralis. They start trying to render the pectoralis. I didn't do much rendering there, but it's like you could start throwing tone and light and shadow, and you get caught up in the anatomy, right? That's a very common problem that I see students come in with, especially in mentorship where I get to know the students better. I can't tell you how many of the students that come in that are new come in saying, well, you know, I've already been drawing quite a while. I've been learning from the internet, especially YouTube. And they're like, I've already, you know, learned anatomy and I've been rendering. And then they show me their drawings, and their drawings, as you'll see with what Mrityunjay is going to cover next, you know, they're sort of insecure, and they're not drawn well. The form's not really that good, right? And yet they're trying to render and they're drawing anatomy. It's like, why are you doing that? That's like trying to draw the eyeball on a lump of clay, right? You want to always, again, no matter what the subject is, you want to try to come in as big as you can and slowly massage your way down to detail. So that's the thing I really want to hammer here in my segment, is big to medium to small thinking, right? So I thought I would, I have one other chart actually I want to share with you guys here. Oh, and before I do that, I have this one comment. It's like, well, why is this so important? And not only big, medium, small thinking is important, but if you tie that concept in with the idea of this next statement, which is that form follows function, right? Which we all know now is like the rule of not only art, right? Like that comes from the concept of art, this statement. But if you think about that across everything, by the way, for me, everything is art. Everything that is created is art. Forget about even nature, but everything man-made is really art, right? Like be aware the chair you're sitting in is somebody designed, the house you're in, the car, the clothing, your forks, knives, and spoons, everything's a piece of art, right? If you think about all of that, that everything is art, and now you look at this rule of form follows function, and you combine that with the concept of, you know what, I'm supposed to think about big to medium to small, then magic happens here, right? Because that means the first big idea you are after is the function of something, right? Understanding what the purpose of that thing is. What is its job, right? What's its job? What is it supposed to do? So, you know, again, if it was a fork, knife, and a spoon, and I had to design these things, you know, it's taken thousands of years, right, for mankind or humankind to create these utensils for eating. You're not going to eat soup with a fork, right? Like there's a reason that the spoon is a cup with a handle attached to it, right? Those things are based off of function, right? So if you can keep your head in the space of, I'm trying to think about big ideas, therefore the first thing I should think about is function. Well, guess what? This is where force comes in, right? Because that's what we teach, right? We teach the concept of you're trying to understand the function of the body. That's a big idea. You want to stick with the biggest ideas first, right? Which means we're dealing with typically the torso first, and then the legs, because the legs are supporting the weight of the torso, and then the arms, which are usually helping balance out the torso, or they might have some other secondary action. And then finally the neck and head as well, right? So hopefully this makes sense. I want you to get a sense of how these things kind of come together.